Welcome once again to Live from my office. Hi, I'm Steve Cochran. I appreciate your patronage, if you will. You know, I always wanted to own my own store where I could put up a sign that said, I appreciate your patronage. But that idea made me tired, so I knew I couldn't actually work those hours. But I do very much appreciate your support wherever you listen, anytime you listen. And thank you for it. Don't forget to check out the show notes, where we put up links to the guests that we have on every single episode and information about the show and upcoming shows and stuff like that. And, of course, you're always invited to email thecochranshow@gmail.com. More new ways for you to win apt gift cards coming up as well. Thank you to our title sponsor and longtime friend, David Hochberg, and Team Hochberg at 855-56-DAVID or 56david.com. You know, he's the guy to call. I mean, unless you want to, throw some money away. I mean, it's your money if you want to throw it away. But Team Hochberg, thank you for making this possible as well. Coming up today, we've got Eric Adelstein and Pat Brady, two of the best guys I know. Pat Brady, the former Republican Party head in Illinois. Make up your own jokes there. And also Eric Adelstein, one of the most influential Democrat consultants, politicians, movers and shakers in the country. They're both great guys, and they get along. And there's no shouting. They obviously don't agree on politics. One's a Democrat, one's an actual Republican. But even though they don't agree on all policy, they do agree on certain things, and they listen to each other. What a crazy concept. And I probably get more comments, or at least as many comments about them as I do any other guest. So glad you like them and glad to have them back. And we will get to them coming up here in just a moment. Follow me on Twitter at Cochran Show, and follow me on social media everywhere. It is appreciated as well. And as I said, thanks for being here. We'll come back and listen to a little bit of Pat Brady and Eric Adelstein trying to figure out the politics of the day from Washington to Chicago, where we live, and back. This is Live from my office. If you or a family member is interested in securing a reverse mortgage loan, listen to this invaluable information from Team Hochberg, your trusted local lender. Experienced homeowners at least 62 years old secured 44,666 reverse mortgages in 2020, totaling a record $10.6 billion. See, 2020 was bad, but not everything was bad, because these financially astute homeowners are taking advantage of the many benefits from reverse mortgages. That's something you can ask David Hochberg about today. Those reverse mortgage benefits include increasing monthly cash flow. All the proceeds from reverse mortgage loans are tax-free. Extending the life of retirement funds, making home modifications so it's safer and easier to live the best years of your life, and afford in-home medical and housekeeping pros to assist you with everything you need to do as life becomes more challenging. Enjoy your golden years without the fear of running out of money. If you'd like more information about reverse mortgage loans from local reverse mortgage loan experts, do what we have done, my family, my friends, my listeners. We call Team Hochberg, 855-56-DAVID or 56david.com, and tune in to Home Sweet Home Chicago, hosted by David Hochberg. It's Saturday mornings at 10 on 720 WGN. Homeside Financial is an equal housing lender. NMLS number 1124061.
Now he's never gonna look at politics as simply black and white, yeah. Listen to Pat Brady. Listen to Pat Brady. He's really gonna blow your mind because he's seldom wrong, just right, yeah. Listen to Pat Brady.
This is Live from my office. This would be it. And there is Eric Adelstein and Pat Brady. Pat, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Pat, tell everybody the name of that company that you run.
Next Generation Strategies. Thank you.
If you could get a little farther from the microphone, Pat, I'm pretty sure we couldn't hear you at all.
Oh, I'm sorry. Next Generation Strategies. Thank you.
Eric, you still at AL Media, or have you decided to become a drifter?
Still at AL Media. I think you woke Pat up to do this podcast, Steve. What do you think?
I think that hair is about as good as it's going to get all day.
You know, people pay a lot of money for that style.
We sort of look like the before, the during, and the after of hair loss between the three of us. So, all right, I have a list of things to discuss with the two of you. Of course, for those of you who listen regularly, you know Pat and Eric well. If you're new to this, Pat was the former head of the Republican Party in the state of Illinois. And he is a guy that has lifelong views of what conservatism should be and what a real Republican is. And he stays in that lane, but he has been one of the primary critics of Trump and Trumpism and all the damage it's done to the country and the Republican Party. Eric was named by Cranes as one of the most powerful men in the universe, or one of the most influential Democratic forces in the country. Yet these two can get along. You guys have known each other how long? Just for a little background here.
Way too long.
47 years.
47 years is interesting, Eric, because you're what, 48, 49?
48, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But anyway, it's the one thing I constantly hear about these conversations is that it's good to hear two people with differing views who can actually get along and listen to each other. So we begin. Pat, let's start with your prosecutorial side, he tried to say. There could be an indictment coming down on Trump's New York State crimes as soon as Thursday. What do you know? What do you think is going to happen?
A couple things, and this is going to be a view that maybe not many people share, but I think the prospect of indicting the former president of the United States or his companies is bad for the country. And from what I've read about what they're going to indict him on, or indict the companies on, or indict the people that work for him on, it's kind of chickens. It's not
chicken shit. It's fine.
Chicken shit stuff. And my question is this. If you really want, I've been saying this for 5 years, if you really want Trump to go away, quit giving him oxygen. And now we've got a Democratic Manhattan DA, Cyrus Vance Jr., is going to start indicting people within Trump world on crimes that occurred before Trump was president. And my question is this, would he have been investigated and prosecuted were he not president? And the answer is no. So that plays right into Trump's hand that this is a political witch hunt. As much as I dislike Trump or his business antics or his lack of ethics, I think this is a tremendously bad development, not just for Trump, which I could care less about, but for the United States. I do not want to see people from the Trump organization or Donald Trump doing a perp walk at Rikers Island. It's bad for the country. But let's see what the charges they're talking about Thursday don't sound like much. The charges, the broader charges, the financial crimes are serious. I used to prosecute those kind of cases. They're certainly serious at the federal level, but I don't think this is a good development at all.
Eric?
Yeah, I'm very mixed on this. I think we can't enable the behavior. We have to hold him accountable. Otherwise, you just allow others to behave criminally as Trump has. But I'm kind of with Pat. Like, this seems penny ante stuff. I'm a little confused because every report has said this functionary that works for the Trump organization is not cooperating.
Weisselberg,
thank you. And maybe they're hoping once they indict that will loosen him up to cooperate. But he's still, from the reports I've heard, Pat, he's still going into work every day at the Trump organization. So this doesn't sound like a blockbuster, cracking open the Trump criminal empire.
Exactly. If you look at what the bigger, broader ones they're talking about and what they're waiting for the tax returns on, the allegations are that he overinflated his real estate values to get loans and then underinflated them on his tax returns. So that's an oversimplification, but that goes on every day in the real estate development world. So, but the bigger point to me is we're indicting him for conduct he did before he was president. So if this is the case, where were you, Cy Vance, 5 years ago? And that just, again, I don't care if he gets indicted, but it just plays into Trump's stupid witch hunt arguments. It undermines yet another institution, which I believe in, which is the Manhattan DA's office.
Well, Pat, you'll be pleased to know that I'm starting to agree with you. And I've disagreed with you on this forever. But I believe that most of the opinions are pretty founded and concrete here as to what you think of Trump. Because my opinion before was you need to make him take the perp walk at Rikers Island, as you put it, because you need to remind people how bad a guy this is so he doesn't have life in 2 years or in 4 years. I think everybody's got a pretty firm opinion of what they think of Donald Trump, and you don't need the perp walk to get that done. And you could actually light him up and give him more oxygen and give these lunatics on the far, far right more oxygen to create more problems. So, Pat, this hurts me to say this. I think you're right.
Well, I'm really right. There are bigger issues to focus on. If I'm a Democrat, and Eric can straighten me out on this, Joe Biden's on a roll. Why do you want the distraction of this idiocy in giving it oxygen? He's going to get an infrastructure bill through that on a bipartisan basis. It looks like we've been getting rolled by the Democrats right now. because we got a guy in office that actually knows how to work the system. So another thought.
Eric?
Yeah, I mean, it's the larger question, which I think because it will be allowed to be politicized, where we're in this moment where everyone has their own truths, everyone has their own cynicism about, the powers that be, whether it's a state's attorney's office or it's the federal government or whether it's the police department. And so, I don't think it's one of those where everyone's going to say, oh, he's getting what he deserved. It's going to become politicized. And I agree that it will give him more oxygen. I'm torn, though, because, you can't allow the behavior. I do think the tax return investigations will potentially bear more fruit and perhaps be more meaty. But I just, let's let this guy go away.
Because of the crimes of Mitch McConnell, ethically, morally, and maybe even figuratively, did we miss the moment with Trump? An opportunity to get him while we could have gotten him?
Well, we said, I think we said on your show many, many times at the beginning of the Trump era, the key was going to be the Republicans in the Senate. The success or failure of his presidency would be whether there would be profiles of courage in that Republican caucus. And we saw there wasn't. And once McCain left the scene, you were left with a badly emasculated Mitt Romney and basically nothing else. And Mitch McConnell was the ringleader of enabling this behavior, of encouraging the big lie, of showing how amoral he actually is. I mean, and then you start at the beginning of this Biden administration, and he says, once again, our goal is to block this agenda.
Right.
Like, that's the goal of the Senate. I mean, isn't the goal?
He said that in 2008, too.
I know, but isn't the goal to do something that helps people? He's just nakedly partisan, and it's all about the power and has nothing to do. And then he makes this comment about Supreme Court. I mean, a guy who's been the biggest hypocrite on filling seats in the Supreme Court says, if we have the chamber, I won't let Biden fill a seat.
Right.
What does that mean? Where are we in this country?
There's no human standards you can hold Mitch McConnell to, including the size of a normal chin, because he is a bad guy on every level. And he seems to have no concern with the fact that he has a limited time left on this earth. And he's happy going out as Darth Vader.
But the point is, he never paid a political price for Merrick Garland. Never. And that's the country's fault. All
right, but let me go backwards for a second, back to the legal thing. There is the January 6th discussion. I don't know how you could ever make Trump legally responsible for that. But is that enough, especially with Pelosi now pushing for a select committee response to this? Is that enough to eliminate him politically for a larger chunk of people who still on some form believe in him?
Oh, that'll be hyper partisan. It'll be a hyper partisan congressional hearing where the questions that are asked, I'd like to see 13 prosecutors on that thing and actually do it the right way, but it'll be partisan. And like Eric said, one side's going to believe one thing, the other side's going to believe something.
But the part I don't understand about this is we all saw the video, we all saw the pictures. And I know there's a segment on the far right and on the far left too, who only believe what they want to believe. My friend Dennis DeYoung talks about it. He goes, we believe the lies we like.
Yeah.
The far right and the far left, the farthest points of both when it comes to January 6th, that's not the majority of the population. So how can anybody look at what happened, know that cops died, and go, well, let's move on? It's the U.S. Capitol. I don't know where else we go from here. You allow people to storm the U.S. Capitol, be part and parcel to killing cops, and we don't even have a full investigation into what happened. I mean, what standards do we have left?
I agree. How you vote against the investigation, I understand, but do I have any confidence that this investigation will be a productive, nonpartisan event where we get an answer like the 9/11 Commission was? No, it'll be a political theater. They're going to put Marjorie Taylor Greene on this from the Republican side. I mean, the Democrats will politicize it too. It's just not going to be productive. But I do believe it needs to be done. Don't get me wrong.
Eric?
Well, going back to McConnell for 1 second, I do think he did pay a price for his deal with the devil. He lost his majority. I mean, clearly the loss in Georgia of those 2 runoff seats was a function of, him dabbling with Trump, them not being able to get organized, and the sort of backlash over all the mixed messages that were happening. That, if McConnell hadn't made that deal with Trump, hadn't sold out to the dark forces, I think that he would have held his majority, but he didn't. So I don't think that's as much a price as he should pay for basically being a amoral POS, but he did pay some price there.
Well, what price do we pay if we live in a country where January 6th doesn't matter enough to the people in this country to push for answers?
Well, we're in jeopardy. Look, I'm not optimistic about where we stand right now. I feel a little bit like, is this how they felt in 1855? Would they be on the equivalent of the Steve Cochran podcast and be like, yeah, things are bad, but it's not like it's going to come to war or anything. We'll figure this stuff out. I mean, we're in a bad place right now. And if we don't have a shared set of beliefs, we don't have a shared set of truths, we don't agree on what the meaning of America or freedom or equality means, what holds the thing together? And this is what scares the heck out of me. You have a decline in journalism. You have a decline in belief in institutions. You have a growing inequality gap that COVID only stripped the veneer off of and made worse. The greatest acceleration of uber wealth in the history of the world happened during COVID. At the same time, people were falling further behind. This is not a recipe for a healthy, functioning democracy into the future. It's just not. And I'm typically not an alarmist, but I'm genuinely fearful how you put the toothpaste back in the tube right now. And it's bad.
I agree. The damage, and we talked about this, Steve, on your show 5 years ago, the damage to the institutions when he started going out after that judge out in California, who was a buddy of mine 5-6 years ago. He did a lot of damage to the institutions. The one thing I would say, though, from the other side of the aisle, that there's got to be some kind of reckoning with. I am sick every day of hearing how there's a certain segment of the population that was responsible for all the world's problems. And I think the Democrats are overplaying their hand a little bit, because I think there's going to be somewhat of a backlash that everything is put in context of race and we're all racists. It's not true. Most majority of people are good people. I think the Democrats a little bit right now are overplaying their hand, and there are certain people we're kind of fed up with it. And I know that's a dangerous statement to make, but enough's enough. Let's start working on our problems and quit trying to pin blame on a certain group of people for everything. There are a lot of problems we need to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, here's what I'm going to disagree with Pat. I actually think it's the Republicans that are trying to politicize more the race lens of things. I mean, for the most part, most Democrats don't believe that everyone is out there is racist. I think the conversation, and Republicans are doing a very good job of trying to drive that wedge and, make white people think that Democrats want them to all feel guilty. I think the point is, having a racial reckoning after George Floyd, and an understanding that the fact is there are laws, there are institutions, there has been creation of generational wealth that was a function of a system that favored white people over black people. That's just a fact. It doesn't make today's white people racist. It means that the greatest engine of generational wealth, home ownership, was denied to a class of people. The ability to get educated after World War II with the GI Bill was denied to a race of people. And then the huge question, I don't have all the answers, is what do you do today? The problem is the people who say, like Judge Roberts on the court, well, the best way to get past racism is to stop talking about race. The problem you have is if you are race neutral in everything, that doesn't have a neutral effect on everyone. The best analogy I heard for this was, if you have a neighborhood and there's a house on fire, you don't want the police to come the fire department to come and spray a hose on every house. You want them to spray it on the house that's on fire. And unfortunately, for generations, there are a class of people whose house has been on fire, and you need the fire department to come and give extra help there. So look, it's a huge debate. We could spend hours talking about it. I don't think it should be politicized. I do think the Republicans, and there's a couple columns in the New York Times today, or maybe it was yesterday, that talk about how well the Republicans have been doing at trying to make this a wedge issue. But, I don't think it's about saying white people are racist. I think it's about saying there are systems and wealth and economic advantages that have no question disadvantaged a race of people. But what do you do about it?
Well, here's the thing, and the other side of that is there are a lot of white people every day that are getting the message that, and even Bill Maher was saying this, in corporate America, it's all white fault, white, you're bad, white. And I think it is a wedge. It's a part of the Republicans that use that as a wedge, which I completely agree. But there are also a group of Democrats that we hear from every day about we need to do more. Here maybe the question. This debate is not new. It's 50 years old. All these decisions on affirmative action are 50 years old. And some of the things I think that the Democrats proposed, the big spending left-leaning agenda, that didn't work. And maybe we need to have a different approach, but it can't all be more of the same. Throw more money at it, do more, punish other people for it. To me, I just think that there are people that are sick of hearing about it. Not that you don't want to talk about it. Don't get me wrong. I do believe we have to have a discussion, but I think the Democrats are overplaying it.
Well, but here's the thing too. I don't know, because I agree with what you said, Eric. We're at a critical point here, crossroads, a fork in the road, whatever you want to use for your term. I don't know that our generation is going to fix this or can fix this, and we're running out of time. So if you go with the idea that our generation, which is the generation in power and in leadership, is so 50-50, and these aren't exact numbers, but I don't believe you don't believe me. If we stick in that spot, our generation of kids are the ones that would have to save this country. Are they going to have enough time if we go down this screwed up road we're on for another 10 years?
I mean, that's the problem. And, we've talked about the idea of the American dream and the idea of, upward mobility, and you could be born into a certain class and have, just through your own pluck and luck, move to a higher class. And the problem is that's just going away. And we're sort of stuck in the places we're born right now. And so how many generations does it take of that before people say American dream? What the hell was that? That doesn't exist anymore. If I'm born rich, I'm going to be rich. If I was born poor, the odds are just against me getting out of this thing. And, that I just come back to like the old cliche of, but it's a powerful statement. America is an idea. It's not a place. But if we don't all agree on what that idea is, what are we left with? We're left with these sort of tribal factions that want to define truth the way we want to define it. We want to associate and talk to people who are like-minded with us. And then there's no bridging the divide. So it's not good.
Is Biden not a strong enough personality as president to help pull the country together, partly because of his age and partly because of who he is? And, in an era that's obviously all video all the time, is he in a position where he could be, because I agree with what Pat said earlier, and I think we all agree that he's done a really remarkable job in a few months here, but I don't think the country gets that. I think a lot of people get it, but those outside of politics don't. And I don't know that the country understands how much has gotten done and how hard even an infrastructure bill is to get done in this environment.
It's got a 60% approval rating. I haven't seen a president since anybody, maybe even Obama never got above 50. I mean, I think country does recognize this. I'm not shown for him. I don't like a lot. We're spending too much money. No one talks about that anymore. And the infrastructure to be defined the way he's trying to define it, I don't agree with. But he is getting a lot done. I think people appreciate the calm.
But I think realistically, Pat, I think 60% is a great number in politics. I think in the climate we're in, you need 75.
No, but I mean, 60 in relative to the last 3 or 4 presidents is a pretty damn good number. HW never got there, or W. So I think people are. But the bigger point is, on this whole issue, and I'll give you what really irritates me living in the city now is the left's view of law enforcement. I totally agree there needs to be criminal police reform, but there are shootings every night down here. We've got a state's attorney in Cook County, and we have one in a couple other major cities that don't believe putting people in the penitentiary is part of their job, and it's hurting everybody. It's not just hurting people like me; it's hurting everybody. And that kind of worldview of maybe that's the solution to the equality problem, to me, it's so misguided and it's doing a ton of damage.
Well, it's an interesting moment where we saw what happened in New York City, because the crime issue, the violence is not unique to Chicago. It's happening in every big city. It's a weird inflection point post-COVID and post-defund police and all that stuff. But, here you have Eric Adams, who's likely to be the next mayor of New York, who ran on much more of a anti-crime platform.
Yeah, exactly.
And, I think that's a lesson for Democrats. There's also there's been a lot of information that's come out about both those New York voters and voters across the country, where the sort of uber left is really a bunch of white progressives. And it's not so much people of color,
exactly,
who are black or with, Latinx. It's really a bunch of white progressives, and that minority voters tend to be more conservative, sure, even in the Democratic coalition. So, look, Republicans and
South Florida.
Democrats,
look at South Florida.
Yeah, but I mean, Democrats created the opening, and Republicans took advantage of it in the election. It hurt at the congressional level and the Senate level to some extent on this kind of notion, and I think there was backlash among Latinx and African American voters, and I think we better take notice. Those voters are much more interested in bread and butter issues. They're much more interested in economic development and healthcare and what you're going to do to keep their communities safe. No, of course they don't want racist cops, and they all recognize they've had to have the talk with their children, and that that policing in this country is fundamentally flawed. But it doesn't make every cop a bad person, and every police department needs to get eliminated.
And as bad as George, and I agree with Eric, it was a reset with George Floyd. A lot of people woke up to the whole issue of police conduct, but the actions of the people that put Chauvin in jail, I mean, they did a fantastic job convicting that guy, that cop. I watched a lot of that trial. They nailed that guy to the wall. I thought he was going to get closer to 30. He got 22 and a half. Yeah. But that was.
You said you thought that prosecution was spot on.
Oh, it was fantastic.
Well, and being the cop that killed George Floyd in prison, that's not a good life.
No, 22 and a half years.
If he makes that.
Let me finish this up again. Because I'm just not I'm more optimistic on it because I did vote for Joe Biden because I hate Trump. And I don't necessarily agree with the Democratic agenda, but I do agree. We do have a guy in there who's the right guy for the time. A calm guy that knows Washington. They can get things. And maybe you saw what happened in Wisconsin day before yesterday. The Wisconsin party basically rejected Trumpism to a certain extent. So I do believe the further we get away from his idiocy, all these institutions hopefully will regain their status that we need.
We can circle back at the end here. I'll give you just a second, Eric. Sure. We can circle back at the end here with anything that we missed there, but I do want to get to the city and the state as well. But you were going to say, Eric?
I was going to say, I know I'm sounding doom and gloom. There is some hope because I do believe the American people are less polarized than social media and the media would play it, because conflict sells. The more outrageous you are, the more followers you get. But I don't believe the majority of voters share that polarization. Yes, we have this problem of alternative facts and different truth vacuums. But I do think we do share more than we don't share. And look, it's not just up to the president. And I don't mean to get all civic and hokey. It's up to all of us to sort of reclaim what we want out of our country. And that's what self-government's about. And that's what the idea of freedom is. Not this idea that I can go spit in your face when I've got a COVID and not wear a mask. The idea of freedom is having institutions that allow us to self-govern ourselves and do it in the way that we want. And I think we got to reclaim some of that.
Yeah. And again, to me, it goes back to the next generation. I'm hoping they'll have a chance to do it, but I don't know. I'm concerned, as I know you both are.
I'm sorry, just round this out. Corporate, there needs to be some corporate reforms. And then that, Eric, you talk about the equality gap, the pay gap, something needs to change because this ain't working. And I'm a fiscal conservative Republican capitalist, but that system right now is not working, and it's way out of balance. And that, as you know, all know from history, that's a bad sign for the future.
The only thing that changes that is capitalism.
Huh?
Capitalism changes. You can't have government change that. So capitalism.
Well, government regulates capitalism to a certain extent. Not that
you can't regulate hiring practices to a level where, okay, you're going to now take 10% in the executive suite. It doesn't work that way.
No, you can regulate exec comp, and there needs to be something done. You can regulate that. And I'm not an advocate for regulations, but you can do something, the disparity between the C-suite and the people below.
It's unsustainable. It's not. I mean, we won't. There's no society in the history of the world that sustains that kind of inequality. It just.
Well, it's what ended every empire.
Every empire, right? So we will be the exception. So.
Is it fair to put gun violence in Chicago on Mayor Lightfoot, who has made a ton of mistakes and has had a very rough run, not all of her making? I had a lot of discussions with Mayor Emanuel about this on and off the air. There's only a certain amount of things you can do politically. It falls on the mayor's desk because she's the mayor. What can she realistically do to deal with gun violence in Chicago?
I mean, I don't put it on her. I think she's.
But I think the public does.
Well, you sit in the big chair, you are ultimately responsible. But if you look what's happening in every major city, in a way, I'm doing mayor's races in LA and Seattle and Boston, and those places have equal, if not worse, problems than Chicago has, and compound that with a housing and homeless crisis that people can't use their parks or their streets because they're basically tent cities right now. So, the issue of gun violence is a function of three things. It's a function of policing, yes. It's a function of economic development opportunity, and it's a function of gun flow. And the gun flow from Indiana is a real issue that New York and LA don't have, but Chicago does, because it's so easy to get these weapons. And these disputes that start on social media and end up erupting in vigilante justice in these gangs, would not be as severe if there wasn't ready access to guns.
So as Pritzker called out the governor of Indiana and called him in private and said, I need your help fixing this. We need to do this.
I don't know.
I mean, I've talked to the three of you or the two of you about this before. I believe there needs to be a gun summit, and I believe both of them need to do it. I understand politically it's probably a disadvantage to both of them, and I couldn't care less. But if Pritzker and the governor of Indiana, whose name escapes me, and it shouldn't, if they had a summit about this and said, this is what we're going to do because the people of Indiana don't want to do this, don't want the situation to be what it is, and certainly the people of Illinois don't. Why wouldn't that happen, or why can't it happen?
Well, the NRA has basically won the debate up till now. They have defined the terms of it. They have twisted the meaning of the Second Amendment into something that it's not. And we now have, 350 million guns in circulation.
I think it's closer to 400 now.
Okay, 400 million guns in a country of 300 some million people. Right. So, how do you put that genie back in the bottle? We haven't had, even after these, just unspeakable horrors that have happened as a function of these, just take the AR-15 semi-automatic weapon. That's a weapon of war that no reasonable person needs to have for hunting or protection or safety or collection. And, it's the weapon of choice of mass murder. And we can't ban that weapon. What's wrong with us as a society? So.
You need to have reason. I agree. Need some reasonable gun regulations. I think the NRA now, it's good. They're weakened. I mean, after Sandy Hook, we got no reforms with the Democrat House, Senate, and President. It just wasn't politically feasible. I'm just one that didn't agree on the flow of guns from Indiana is going to make a damn bit of difference. I think the bigger issue, the guns are already here. The bigger issue are point one and point two of what Eric said, and maybe point three is we need to quit vilifying police and beef up our police force.
Well, they're all part of it, but the cops will tell you they take the guns off the street. The people that had the guns go back on the street, but then they get more guns from Indiana. There's the problem.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree it's going to have an impact. That's just my opinion. But
you were right for a while. I can't believe you're wrong again.
I think the other problems are, and I think the disrespect, the social media fighting, and the disrespect that these guys have for anybody's life is the problem. But it seems like police are under the scrutiny right here, and somewhat deservedly so. But I think we just need more of a police presence.
We're going to run out of time here, but before we do, Rick Pearson wrote a great piece on Friday because he continues to break news as maybe the last journalist in Chicago, talking about a bill that sailed through the legislature in Springfield. By the way, we're all in the Chicago area. I know you're listening in various places around the country and actually around the world, but Chicago politics is a world topic. And in this bill, corporate tax appeals that were won by the corporations and had to be refunded by the state would be made up with yearly property tax increases that would be passed on to taxpayers in Illinois. Is Pritzker going to sign this?
God, I hope not. I mean, that's just an outrage. And you want to talk about, adding to the inequities and even the optics of inequity in this state and in this country. I can't think of a worse way to reconcile that problem.
Lightning round. Mike Madigan, does he go to jail?
No.
I guess this would be for you, Pat.
Well, it could be for both. Yeah, I think he gets indicted. I think there's going to be more indictments. I think he's going to get indicted. It's going to be broader than ComEd. It's going to relate to that real estate deal in Chinatown, but I do believe he's going to get indicted.
Does journalism need to wake up as well, what's left of it in Washington, and realize that nobody gives a rat's ass whether Donald Trump climbed to the second floor of the West Wing offices, which was a story that is coming out in a book soon, that people wanted an office on the second floor of the White House. It's TV movie of the week stuff, but they wanted to be on the second floor because they knew Trump would never come up there because he's fat and he's old and he doesn't like climbing stairs. Well, guess what? Neither do I.
I mean, look, we're still in this clickbait moment of journalism. And unfortunately, Trump gets clicks. And the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times and the major news outlets are not immune from that. And Washington Post as well. So, we haven't had that full reckoning yet, but it needs to happen.
It's so tough to watch a guy like Pearson who writes great articles consistently and fair.
Well, he does the work.
He does the work to listen to this crap that I hear every day.
Bill Barr coming out and saying that Trump's election stuff is bullshit. Does it matter?
Little too late. I mean, it's kind of a cover your ass as Trump's popularity declines and Barr tries to preserve his horrible place in history as the most partisan, corrupt AG maybe in American history. I think it's just too little too late.
I think the thing that I agree with Eric, he should have done. I mean, he covered up the Mueller report. I remember he did his press conference and they released a report 2 hours later. It was a flat out lie what he said in the press conference prior. So I agree with Eric. I think the one thing that might have some impact long term is this slowly, hopefully he fades away, are these investigations that the individual states are doing, like they did in Michigan on the election fraud issue. I read that report. Everything that Trump has said is a complete lie. None of that stuff is true.
Right.
And last thing for me, and then I'll ask you if you have anything you want to throw in, but vaccine incentives continue to go on around the country. We've had 150 million or so that are fully vaccinated in this country. We won't reach Biden's July 4th goal, but do we need to be happy with where we are? Do we keep pushing? Because, I got both vaccines. I didn't get round trip tickets on United Airlines. I didn't get a coupon to Chick-fil-A. I understand that we want to get as many people vaccinated as possible, but this incentive thing is crazy.
I think it's sad. And it's a testament to our times. And, this is the actual price you pay in lives and death and health for alternative facts and the lies that Trump and those followers perpetrate. There was a data that came out, I think just this week, maybe it was late last week, that if you look at communities with the lower vaccination rates, the COVID rates are much, much higher right now. And those tend to be in red states, red communities, red counties, where they have believed the lie. And we pay a price. The fact that we have to bribe people to save their lives is a pretty sad statement.
But I did get a benefit, Steve. I had the Johnson & Johnson shot, the one shot, and it also cleared up my syphilis. So,
well, congratulations on that.
Finally.
I know you've been looking for that for a long time.
Bonus.
I want to salute my friend Myra Sampson, a woman who has run the Chicago Christian Academy on the West Side in a very difficult neighborhood for a long time. She did something this year called Vaccinations and Graduations, where the kids that were graduating from her school were encouraged to get vaccinated at the same time. And she had people there to administer vaccines as they walked up and got their diplomas, which is pretty cool.
That's cool. But like Eric said, the misinformation. Remember what Trump said? You just drink bleach.
You didn't try that, Pat, did you?
I was screwing around with Cochran on this, and I had a bleach bottle as a prop.
It was empty.
And I thought it was empty, and I go like this, and some leaked in my mouth.
Oh, gee.
And as only guys would do, I laughed.
I come up, I go, you won't believe this.
Eric, anything we missed?
No, it's as usual. Great conversation. Love being on with you, Steve, and look forward to doing it again soon.
Pat?
I agree with Eric, as I always do. We'll see you on the golf course.
You run the firm called Adelstein, enlisted media, politician, guide, encyclopedia. They'll all be fine, 'cause they're all with Adelstein, Eric Adelstein.
If you're interested in lowering your rate, paying off debt, shortening the term of your loan, you need a lender who could give you the best advice, and that's David Hochberg. You need to use your trusted friend, the one you know, your trusted local lender, Team Hochberg. If you're interested in lowering that rate, paying off debt, shortening the term of your loan, renovating your home, look, in May, Team Hochberg helped listeners access $1.9 million of their home's equity and reduce their payments over $35,000 a month. Now, so far this year, Team Hochberg has helped listeners extract over $12 million of their home's equity, saved them over $362 a month. Seriously, what are you waiting for? I mean, just that average savings, what are we talking about, $4,000 a year, more than that? Your debt isn't going to magically disappear. The consultation is free. Call Team Hochberg now and see if they can help shorten your loan's term, reduce your rate, lower your monthly payments, eliminate your debt. Team Hochberg has helped thousands of listeners secure low rates and reduce their monthly payments, but they can't help if you don't call 855-56-DAVID or visit 56david.com. And don't forget to tune in to Home Sweet Home Chicago, hosted by David Hochberg, Saturday mornings at 10 on WGN Radio. Homeside Financial, an equal housing lender, NMLS number 1124061.
We got bills, they're multiplying, and our credit scores are low. I can't believe we cannot refi. We just don't qualify. You better wise up, because we need a plan. Team Hochberg always pulls you through. You better call now. And get that Hochberg man. What it says we know is true. Call him now, that's what to do.
Back on Live from my office. A couple of things before we go. We always do a charity worth mentioning on every podcast episode. I encourage you to tell me about one that lights you up, one that you think other people ought to know about. Send me the details, at the bare minimum, their website, and I will do a little recon, and they're in all likelihood going to get a free plug from me here on Live from my office. And I got a couple to mention here. Recognition months are great. They absolutely are. And we're actually recording this on June 30th, the last day of Pride Month. And you can actually take pride in helping LGBTQ youth survive, because many of them are in crisis right now about who they are, about their identity, and about the basic biology that has made them maybe different than you and me, but it doesn't make us better. So we need to let people live, be who they are, celebrate their lives, and love who they love. And I certainly hope this world continues to get bigger and brighter in that regard. But there's good news in this particular charitable endeavor, and that is the Trevor Project in particular has programs that reach out to make sure that kids have somebody to talk to. If they're struggling with coming out, if they're struggling with who they are, we know the suicide rates are through the roof when it comes to being young and gay. And the trevorproject.org does stem the tide of that and wants to continue that work in even greater ways. And you can help. And if you're listening to this on June 30th, you've only got a few hours, but if you make a donation before midnight, they will triple it. They and their main sponsors will triple the donation if you do it before July 1st. So thank you for your consideration of that. In addition to that, every study we see on the topic agrees that early childhood education and intervention are crucial to have kids grow up and maximize their lives. You can help make sure that programs are funded, teachers are taught in the ways to make getting to kids when they're young possible, to make sure they have the best lives possible and secure their own health and happiness. So consider helping the Erickson Institute for Early Childhood Development. They're at erickson.edu. And what they essentially do is teach the teachers, but it's more than that. They have programs in the community that help with family issues and with making sure that little kids get the love, support, and encouragement they need that we all benefit from. So thank you for your consideration of both of those causes. Again, you can look into that at erickson.edu and celebrate the end of Pride Month, but the continuation of the work at thetrevorproject.org. Both of those would love your help and support, and I'd appreciate it if you did it as well. One more thing. As we record this, we're just hours out of the news that Bill Cosby has been released from prison. There are stories that deserve to go deeper than the headlines, and this certainly is one of those stories. There were tens of women who accused Bill Cosby of the same crime, of being plied with Quaaludes, knocked out, and waking up either with Cosby on them, in them, or beside them after raping them. The idea, and this, by the way, goes the same for other accusations that have taken place in multiple numbers, like those against Bill Clinton, like those against Donald Trump, the Epstein cohorts. These women don't get together, complete strangers, and go, wow, it'd be so great if I could have my reputation and the worst thing that ever happened to me dragged through the media. If I could be trolled on social media, wouldn't that be great? No. These women spoke up because somebody had the courage to speak up first. In the Cosby case, Andrea Constant may not have been the first, but she was the one case that ended up putting him in jail for almost 3 years of the 3 to 10 sentence that he had been serving. Why is he out of jail? Well, in case you missed the story, there was a previous agreement with the prosecutor prior to the one that brought the case that Cosby would not be charged. This was after an earlier run at the case and a settlement paid to Constant. In the interim, when the charges came up again, Cosby believed that he would not be charged, even though I still don't think we know if that was ever put in writing. But because he believed that, his lawyers said and made the case to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court that he would not have said what he said. And what he said was, yes, he did use Quaaludes to ply women and have sex with them, but said they, in fact, were they were in agreement. It was consensual. Now, I don't know what world you live in or I live in where you would go, you know, most women would love to be knocked out by Quaaludes before having sex with you. It just, on the surface, it doesn't make sense. But the law doesn't deal with what makes sense. It deals with the law. And in this case, the decision was made by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, narrow decision, 4-3, that Cosby was not given a fair trial, and therefore he was released from prison. He is an old man. The die has been cast as to his reputation. He won't be remembered as one of the great comedians of all time. The first line in his biography will be his prison time, and that is punishment. But the women who were victimized have not been served by this decision, and I feel for all of them. I would also add that the ultimate need here is for women to speak up. You are not alone. And you will be able to find someone in the police and a lawyer and folks that will work with you to make sure that the courage you show in standing up to make sure that rapists like Bill Cosby don't get to continue to do it, that those people will be stopped. And it's not fair that he only served a little less than 3 years, but he has been punished, and that at least is a start. My hope is just that this decision made by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court and the fact that Cosby's out of prison and that Donald Trump is walking around a free man and that Bill Clinton is as well, that does not make women not talk about what they've been through. You need to speak up. You need to speak up. Thank you for listening, and thank you for supporting live from my office on every podcast platform we could think of. And again, you could subscribe or like or follow wherever you're listening. That's a great thing. And then you never miss an episode. So we'll see you next time. Thanks to Pat Brady and Eric Adelstein. Thanks to Ross Cochran, who puts this all together. And thanks to you for listening to Live from My Office.
30 years plus on the airwaves. You have turned your dial to me. Now you're tuned into my podcast. It's Live from My Office, Steve. From Ithaca, New York to Carolina South, W. Cochran Steve. From Minneapolis and then Chicago twice. Top-rated shows achieved. Sit back, relax, and now listen to my show. When or wherever you are, 'cause you're on the go. A-list celebs with some laughs and great info. Live from my office, the Steve Cochran Podcast Show. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No better place to be. Yeah, 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 yeah. Subscribe and like for free. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Live from my office, Steve. So glad you're with me. It's live from my office, Steve.
Thank you for listening to Live from My Office, a service of Monkey Run Productions. All rights reserved. The podcast is hosted by Steve Cochran, and it's mixed, edited, and produced by me, Ross Cochran. Steve is available for corporate speaking gigs. He would love to MC your event, and occasionally, he's funny. Thank you for listening. Head to cochranshow.com for more.